All right, we have an opportunity to go live and listen in to a cabinet meeting, President Trump and some of his chosen leaders. Let's listen into what they're talking about.
And when you think of it, we've never done that before, never come close to it. And the number is probably $3.5 billion a day. And that makes us a very strong country. But we have Scott here and Howard and some of the people that are working on deals. And the biggest problem they have is they don't have enough time in the day. Everybody wants to come and make a deal. And we're working with a lot of different countries. And it's all going to work out very well. I think it's going to work out really very well. But we're in good shape. There's no inflation. There's very little inflation. And I went 4 years without inflation, and I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, taxes in China. But we took in hundreds of billions of dollars a year from China, and we had no inflation, essentially. So we think we're in very good shape. We think we're doing very well. Again, there'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing. We're doing again what we should have done many years ago. We let it get out of control, and we allowed some countries to get very big and very rich at our expense, and can't let that happen. It's not a sustainable formula. So I wanted to just thank everybody at the table, and maybe I'll go around and ask some of you a little short couple of answers. Pete just got back from Panama, and he's been all over the place, and you want to give us a little report on that and whatever else you might have to say. Everyone at this table is doing an incredible job, by the way, I have to say. Incredible. And the relationships it's like they're friends. They're really, the relationships are very strong, really good, really strong. And these meetings are very good. And I think, I don't believe there's any other president that allowed the press to come into a meeting such as this. These are very sacred meetings. These are very private meetings. But we have nothing to hide. And I think it's good. I think it's a good, we want to be, a word you like to use, Jeff, is transparent. So we want to be transparent, and we'll do that by starting with Pete. Go ahead, Pete.
Yes, Mr. President, we just got back from Panama last night. We were at the Panama Canal with our Southcom commander ships, F-18s, troops, and signed a couple of historic deals. One which is with the Panama Canal Authority, a framework for U.S. vessels, first and free through the Panama Canal. Right. And then also a memorandum of understanding with their security minister for the presence of U.S. troops. Fort Sherman is an old U.S. base there, as well as a naval station and air station, jointly with Panama to secure the Panama Canal from Chinese influence. That's something you said, we're taking back the canal. China's had too much influence. Obama and others let them creep in. We, along with Panama, are pushing them out, sir. And so we had a very successful trip there. President Molino sends his regards, very complimentary of the U.S. as he's a great ally, and I think they want the Communist Chinese out, and with our troops there partnering with their forces, we've got a chance to push them all the way out, sir.
We've moved a lot of troops to Panama and filled up some areas that we used to have, and we didn't have any longer, but we have them now, and I think it's in very good control, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Very good. Howard?
So, so we've have so many countries to talk to. It is, it's incredible. I think Scott and I'm not sure we could ever have enough time in the day to talk to all these countries because they want to talk and they want to talk now, and they have come with offers that they never, ever would have come with, but for the moves that the president has made. Demanding that people treat the United States with respect. We're getting the respect we deserve now, and I think you're going to see historic deals one after the other. And then I'm very excited that within a week and a half, we're going to start with the gold card, and the Trump card is coming out, and we're very excited about that, and that's coming soon. So very excited.
Good. Thank you very much. Good job. Linda?
Well, on a couple of fronts, we have been addressing the issue of anti-Semitism on campuses. There's been some grant funding and contract funding that we've reviewed, and some we've canceled and some we've put on hold, waiting for that, while we do an investigation. On the other side of what my responsibilities are, and having education go back to the states, we're meeting and talking with governors. I was with, this week, all 50 commissioners of education around the country, and because we also want to provide them with tools and best practices as education does move back to the states. Making great progress, great response from the states, and very positive.
And what about colleges? You're holding back $400 million from Columbia.
From Columbia.
$8 billion from Harvard. Can you imagine the money we pay Harvard? They have a $60 billion fund, and we're giving them $8 billion, and we're trying to figure that out. And then they hire de Blasio, the worst mayor in the history of New York, and they hire the woman from Chicago who was a disaster, total disaster, and they pay them massive salaries, and they're supposed to be teaching you government. That's not Harvard. That's not Harvard the way it used to be. So, do you have anything to say about that? The dollars you're holding back from quite a few universities that were not behaving.
Yeah, and the other, there's the Princeton, Cornell, others that are coming in, and actually getting calls now from the presidents of the universities who really do want to come in and sit down and have discussions. And so we're investigating them, but in the meantime, we're holding back the grant and the fund money.
Okay. Great job. Thank you.
Very thankful for the House voting for the President's budget resolution along with the Senate bill. Made a ton of progress this week in working with members to ensure that a desire for flexibility in the Senate was not misconstrued as a desire not to slow and do spending reforms. And so we're very thankful for that. And now we can get after writing that bill, getting the President as big a package of his agenda to his desk. So very good week.
That's right. We just got the House vote, and now we're well on our way to getting, as we call it, the great big beautiful bill. It's a beauty. There's never been a bill like this one. We're trying to get it all into one beautiful bill. It's tax cuts, regulation cuts, and many other things. The border, a lot of money for the border, where you're doing a fantastic job. So, but we just got a report that we, as you know, you knew before us. Were you surprised we got the vote? Got the vote. And we're happy to get the vote. So I think we're going to be in very good shape. Okay, please.
Mr. President, last year the Chinese received 1,700 orders for new ships. American shipyards received 5. Under your leadership, like so many other industries, we are going to revitalize and make shipbuilding and maritime great again with these blue-collar jobs. These are the cranes, the ports, opportunity zones, and drive that investment back in. And we have, under that executive order, and also one to streamline foreign military sales for people that want to buy our equipment, and of course acquisition reform, all just this week under your leadership, Mr. President.
So we're going to be rebuilding our shipbuilding business. We may order, would have to go to Congress for this, but we may buy some ships from other countries that we're close to and that do great jobs with ships, but we're going to start the process of rebuilding. We don't really essentially build ships anymore, which is ridiculous. It's going to be a very big business for us in the not too distant future, but in the meantime, we have countries that do very well at building ships, and we'll be dealing with those countries, and we may be ordering top-of-the-line ships from those countries, and within a fairly short period of time, we'll be building our own ships. So we'll probably have to go to Congress for that, but we're not going to have a problem. Susie, thank you very much for the job you've done. Go ahead, please.
I just want to make sure you know that this cabinet, I think, pretty uniquely collaborates and cooperates and works together to accomplish all that you've asked them to do, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that.
True. You're doing a great job. The chief of staff, doing a great job. Lee, go ahead.
Mr. President, the Biden EPA was strangulating the economy. The Trump EPA understands it's not a binary choice. We can protect the environment and grow the economy. Working with Doge and Elon Musk, we've now canceled $22 billion worth of grants. And we have launched what is the largest deregulatory action in the history of the country, just in one agency. That's how much of a mess the Biden EPA left us. It is going to end up reducing the cost of living. It's going to create jobs. It's going to make it easier to purchase a car. It will be easier to heat your home. We're proud of this effort. The effort that we have is fulfilling the mandate that you earned from the American public. Clean air, land, and water for all Americans, unleashing energy dominance, permitting reform, advancing cooperative federalism, making America the AI capital of the world, and bringing back American auto jobs. When you called me that day asking for me to take this position, I was honored. And you were very specific and clear in what you wanted us to accomplish. We understand our mission, and at the Trump EPA, we're going to make you proud.
Great job. You're doing a great job. And you have a lot of applications for approvals for power plants, which are going to really power the regular plants, and they're going to be right next to each other because we can't rely on our grid. It's old and it's tired, and it's, you know, very subject to being attacked, whether by rain or by bombs or by anything else. And we're letting people build their own power plants, and these are a lot of them being built with the AI and beyond the AI chips, and we're letting them build their own power, and never been done before. And we're going to get it done quickly and approved quickly as part of a plant. They'll have a sort of be their own power company, and it's very exciting. They couldn't believe it when I told them that. I said, we're going to get you the approvals very fast as part of your regular plant. You're going to build electric producing plants, and it's very exciting. And they're able to do it very quickly and very well, and you made it possible. Thank you. You have a lot of applications for some of the biggest plants that have ever been built in the world. These are serious plants, aren't they? Huh?
Approved. We are open for business. Working with Secretary Burgum, Secretary Wright, we are going to make you proud.
Sean?
First off, Mr. President, it's Brooke's birthday today, so she keeps getting younger, so happy birthday to Brooke.
Thank you.
I want to thank you as well for the shipbuilding at EO. Again, to build ships, we also need mariners to sail those ships. I was just up at Kings Point for the Merchant Marine Academy a couple days ago, and we have some of the greatest young men and women who are learning how to be mechanical engineers, to rebuild and fix the engines on those ships, but also how to sail ships. I would tell you that over the past decades, this academy has become, it needs some love. It's been a little bit dilapidated. We have to invest in sailors, and I appreciate you taking the initiative. To be a global power, we have to build ships and have sailors to sail those ships. These are the very people that help Pete should we come into points of crisis to support the military. So thank you for that. Number two, the last administration announced 3,200 projects, big, beautiful roads and bridges. Most of them are good. But they announced them, they didn't sign a grant agreement. 3,200, so the money doesn't go out the door to build the infrastructure in the country. And it's fun to do an announcement. It's actually the harder work to put together these grant agreements. So we're doing the work right now at DOT to get these grant agreements done and build the projects. Most of them are good. And they also put in all of this green and social justice requirements on roads and bridges. We're pulling all that out and putting the money toward the infrastructure, not the social movement from the last administration.
Good steel, right, as opposed to green paper mache.
CBS News 24/7 listening in to the president's cabinet meeting there, bringing Liz Cook in. Now, you know that famous phrase, life is what happens while you're making other plans. Well, those are the plans of the Trump administration, but this is all happening against the backdrop of life on the stock market right now. It's been wobbly, to say the least, and so that's what's going to command more conversation throughout this hour.
We're going to be talking about that a lot today, Reed. The Dow currently down over 1,500 points. So that's the big headline coming out of the news today on this Thursday. But I want to go back to that cabinet meeting and bring in our expert, CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. She's joining us now from our D.C. bureau for more on this. Nancy, just looking at that cabinet meeting there, what headlines stood out to you?
Well, the president opened up the meeting, Liz, by celebrating the fact that a new report came out this morning showing that inflation is trading downwards. He said everything's getting less expensive. Groceries are getting less expensive. Energy costs are getting less expensive. It's been amazing he said. But there are two big caveats that he did not mention. First of all, we have seen oil prices come down around the globe, in part because the energy markets are worried about a global slowdown as a result of the tariffs that he has put in place. And these figures that he was celebrating today, just a short time ago in that cabinet meeting, those are a reflection of last month before his tariffs went into effect. So the big question is, what are these figures going to look like next month? Because even though he has now put a 90-day pause on a lot of retaliatory tariffs that were supposed to go into effect yesterday, we do still have quite a few tariffs, new tariffs from the Trump administration in place, most notably a massive 145% new tariff on Chinese goods, and Americans get a lot of goods from China.
They certainly do, Nancy, and we're seeing the markets today react to that. Did the president allude to anything to do with what's happening in the stock markets today?
No, and it's unclear, how much he knows, because this really all started, this downward trend in the markets, just within the past hour or so after the White House started to tell reporters who were asking that, oh yes, you know how we said that we were up to a 125% tariff on China? Well, actually, it's even larger. It's a 145% tariff on China, because we forgot about that 20% tariff that we had already imposed, having to do with the fact that a lot of fentanyl that makes its way into the U.S. is manufactured in China. And the Trump administration began punishing China for that a few weeks ago. So now that brings the total tariff on Chinese goods up to 145%. If you are a small business owner here in the U.S. and suddenly the goods that you import are getting 145% more expensive overnight, it is very difficult to stay afloat.
Now, Nancy, and it was interesting. He kind of went down the big conference table there to each one of his cabinet members, and he stopped at Howard Lutnick, and he said something interesting in that, he's had so many people call him trying to negotiate a deal, and these are countries that wouldn't be negotiating these types of deals had Donald Trump not said that he was going to impose these tariffs. So I know you're at the D.C. bureau today. You're normally at the White House. Are you seeing a lot more activity, though, when you are at the White House, of people trying to come and meet with the president?
We did see the Prime Minister of Israel come to the White House and meet in person earlier in the week. Benjamin Netanyahu, we do know that there's a high-level Japanese delegation that's supposed to be heading this way as well. But for the most part, these conversations are taking place over the phone, in secure rooms as they discuss this. Part of the challenge has been, and what's rattling the markets, our understanding is the fact that while, yes, a lot of offers are rolling in, none of those offers have been accepted as far as we know. The White House has been talking about how everyone is kind of coming hat in hand, saying, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll drop our tariffs, we'll allow more of your goods into our country. And yet none of it yet apparently has been enough for Donald Trump, who said something curious at the start of this meeting. He said a lot of other countries got rich off of the U.S. in the past, and now they're going to pay for it, as if it was somehow a zero-sum game, and if they get richer, the U.S. gets poorer. In a lot of cases, both countries benefit when the U.S. sells its goods abroad and when there is free trade with other countries to sell their goods here. So that is what's causing the seesawing in the market. And it'll be interesting to see a little later today, Liz, once the president is out of this meeting, he is briefed about what's happening in the stock markets. If he reacts again in some way, in similar fashion to what he did yesterday, when suddenly it appeared that there was a crisis brewing in the bond markets, and then suddenly he came out and announced that 90-day pause in tariffs around the world.
All right, Nancy Cordes, thank you so much for that insight into that cabinet meeting that's still going on, by the way. But let's take a look again at the big board and the markets erasing nearly half of the gains made after that welcomed pause on President Trump's reciprocal tariffs yesterday. So let's bring in CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger. Jill, great to be with you. Can you explain what's causing this day after soaring gains yesterday? Everybody was so happy about the gains yesterday. Today, not so much.
Yeah, that's why you don't get too happy on the good days and not too sad on the bad days. So to be
advice.
clear, there is not a particular reason. Yesterday might have been an overreaction. Let's just be clear about that. You have a 90-day pause, but you, as Nancy just said, you don't have a deal. And you don't know where things are going to land in 90 days. You know, so much of investing is about confidence. And it's very difficult to have confidence in an administration whose policies change day by day. And it's very difficult to build confidence once you rob confidence by making herky-jerky moves all the time. So what I think is important here is to not get too attached to anything until there is a deal signed in ink. And what investors are telling us, stock and bond market investors right now are telling us is, we fear that growth will be slowing down. We fear that inflation will be ticking up. And we fear that companies will not have a really strong idea of what to do next. And so therefore they'll sit on their hands and idle. That is not a good situation for any economy.
So I want to lean in a little bit more to inflation because we have some new inflation numbers out from March. What do they mean, and will they be eventually impacted by this tariff war, so to speak?
Well, look, this is a past history. It's all over. So it's almost meaningless to some extent. What we know is that coming into this year, inflation was trending down. We were seeing a good path lower. So way back machine, come with me, come right with me now. And we go back to June of 2022, inflation peaked. We saw 9% annual CPI index, and it came down very quickly over the course of a year. Then it took a while to get down towards the 3%. And we've been meandering down from 3%. And in this report today that reflects the market, inflation rate cooled to a 2.4% annualized pace, just a bit above the Fed's desired 2% pace. The core level, which strips out food and energy, at 2.8%, again, directionally fantastic, but meaningless, because if these tariffs go into place, we are going to see the CPI reverse course. And that is why we're looking at the data, we're looking through the data. If we got that CPI report and no tariffs had been actually announced, we would have seen markets go crazy on the upside. But that is not the case. Why? Because we are really worried that those additional fees that companies have to pay when they have a tariff on an imported good will get passed on to consumers and businesses. That will potentially raise the inflation rate.
Supposed to do right now, Jill? I mean, if you're their financial advisor and they're saying, okay, well, what should I do? Should I just avoid buying things that are made in China? Is it that simple?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank God I'm not a financial advisor anymore. 2008 was a plenty of for me. So I had many years in that business. Okay, there's a couple of different things to think about for a consumer versus an investor. So as an investor, stick to your game plan. Stop messing around. You know, there's plenty of old sayings I'll trot out for you, which is don't try to catch a falling knife, meaning don't put all of your money in the stock market right now because you think you know better. At the end of the day yesterday, I was on the air with Major Garrett, the wonderful Major Garrett, on his show, and he said, Jill, this was the best day since, on a percentage basis, for the S&P 500 since 2008. I said, yes, Major, not to end on a down note, but it got much worse after that for 6 months. We don't know where markets are going to land. That means if you are an investor, you stick to your game plan. You keep putting money in your 401k methodically. If you had gone to cash for some reason because you were really scared, you don't know when to get back in, I don't really know what to tell you. But for consumers, here's what I think is a really good way to take control. You have to really get inside your own family's budget. Or let's call it your cash flow. You look at what's coming in, what's going out. And why don't you take a look and say, hey, wait a second. Are we spending in a way that matches what's going on for us? Is one of us at risk? I host a podcast every day, and I hear from federal workers every day who are losing their jobs. And a lot of folks who say to me, I wish I had actually looked at my spending before I got the bad news. all of us would be wise before anything bad happens would be wise to look at what we're spending and make a decision about where we're going to go next and what is your break the glass scenario. Do you have your emergency reserve fund set aside? Have you tried to whittle away at that high interest debt? I'll tell you one thing, for all those folks out there who think that it's very boring and plain vanilla that I come out and I say, emergency reserve, pay down high interest debt and contribute to your retirement account, days like these and months like these prove the rule. Just stick to your game plan. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, there is nothing boring about saving money and making sure you're ahead on days like this. Jill Schlesinger, thank you so much. Incredible advice there. All right, we got some more breaking news to get to, though, this time on Capitol Hill, because House lawmakers voted to adopt the key budget resolution. And this was no small deed, by the way. The bill passed in the Senate last weekend, but a handful of House Republicans spent days railing against this measure, saying budget cuts just didn't go far enough. Now, this back and forth forced House Speaker Mike Johnson to delay the vote last night, but today, some progress. Here's Johnson just moments after that bill's approval.
But the big news today, of course, is that we passed the budget resolution. We adopted the Senate's amendments to the resolution, holding in place all of the commitments and the instructions, the guidelines that the House originally enacted. And that was a big step, because that will allow us now to move forward, to have our committees actually drafting the one big beautiful bill. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and we're really excited about that. In November, the American people delivered unified government to the Republican Party. They returned President Donald J. Trump to the White House. They gave us control of the House and the Senate, and we are going to make good by that. We have a big responsibility.
Meanwhile, here's House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries saying the budget plan betrays the middle class while giving tax breaks to billionaires. Take a listen to that.
We'll continue to make clear that we are not going to provide a blank check to Donald Trump and extreme MAGA Republicans to enact massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors like Elon Musk, while at the same time using that blank check to try to slash healthcare programs like Medicaid and literally take food out of the mouths of children by enacting the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. Those are the top lines. We've been very clear, public, and transparent about it. And the ball is now in the court of the Republicans who claim some big mandate when we know that it does not exist.
Well, here's President Trump's response to this. Congratulations to the House on the passage of a bill that sets the stage for one of the greatest and most important signings in the history of our country. It will be the largest tax and regulation cuts ever even contemplated. Let's get to CBS News congressional reporter Torian Small. Torian, we know they had to delay the vote yesterday. Then today, the tables turned. So how do we get to this point?
So we saw in Speaker Johnson's press conferences throughout the day, and he held many, he said that he decided that instead of taking this to a floor for a vote yesterday and ultimately facing defeat, he would hold on to it so he can continue with negotiations. He and other members of leadership talked with members of the Freedom Caucus to see if they could buy into the idea that even though it isn't explicitly written into the Senate budget resolution, they could get behind the idea of including $1.5 trillion in cuts or savings, as he put it in his press conference, that would come through how they build out this bill. That's going to happen over the coming months. But ultimately, this is just a framework that they could use to work with and ultimately push forward Donald Trump's very aggressive legislative priorities. What we did see from this was 2 Republicans defect from the party. That's Thomas Massie of Kentucky and Victoria Sparks of Indiana. A very frustrated Massie came out of the chambers just a few moments ago and talked to our reporters, and he said, look, he is not on board with this, calling it a framework for financial collapse. When asked whether or not he was a part of those negotiations last night, he said he wasn't in the whipping room with the rest of his Freedom Caucus members, and he also threw a little bit of shade at them, saying that they traded the cow for beans that just won't sprout. I don't know that analogy, but it sounds like he's pretty upset that, and there could be a few other Republicans who are either waiting for those promises to be fulfilled or could also be silently stewing about the fact that this did not explicitly include those cuts that Republicans have been preaching about for at least 4 months now.
That analogy coming from the nursery rhyme or the nursery story, Jack and the Beanstalk there. But Torian, what's the next step?
Well, the next step is over the next couple of months, these committees will convene. There are about 11 in the jurisdiction of the House that will convene to start building out what this budget will look like. This will actually include numbers, and we know from what the Speaker said previously, those cuts could come, well, the majority of those cuts could come from the House Energy and Commerce Committee. That panel oversees quite a few safety net programs like Medicaid, like Social Security, which is why Democrats are sounding the alarm on potential cuts to that program. When pushed on that, Speaker Johnson said, look, we're not looking to cut any benefits from Americans who are enrolled in this program. We're looking at whether or not we could weed out fraud, waste, and abuse from that program list.
Torian Small, thank you so much, live for us on Capitol Hill. But let's get you back to President Trump's cabinet meeting right now, where Elon Musk, who is not a member of his cabinet, is speaking. Let's take a listen.
Better services for the American people, and that we're going to be spending their tax dollars in a way that is sensible and fair and good.
And your people are fantastic. In fact, hopefully they'll stay around for the long haul. We'd like to keep as many as we can. They're great, smart, sharp, right? Finding things that nobody would have thought of. Very computer savvy.
Yes. We're working with hard to get the Trump Gold Card operational, hopefully in the next week or so.
That'll be very exciting. It's
Really exciting.
That's a pathway to citizenship into the United States.
It's a big deal.
Yep, it's a big deal. Thank you very much. Great job you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Thanks to your leadership and setting the mandate of transparency and accountability across the U.S. government, I'm bringing that transparency and accountability to the intelligence community. First and foremost, to make sure that you and your cabinet have that real-time, relevant, apolitical, objective intelligence to best inform whether it's negotiations for peace, negotiations around tariffs, the great work that you are leading around the cabinet today. Secondly, working with Department of Homeland Security and the FBI to increase our information sharing to achieve your goal of countering the narcotic trafficking and our ability to go after cartels now designated as foreign terrorists. I met with the National Sheriff's Association this week, being able to work to make sure that the information that they are getting on the ground, that local law enforcement is getting on the ground, is being fed back up through to our National Counterterrorism Center, and that we have all of the federal agencies, state and local law enforcement all on the same page as we are working to make our country safe again. And lastly, sir, as you know, declassification and rooting out weaponization, politicization of the intelligence community is a huge priority. You know more than anyone else the very dangerous and negative consequences of that. I've got a long list of things that we're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections. And lastly, we've been scanning. I've had over 100 people working around the clock to scan the paper around RFK, Senator Robert F. Kennedy's assassination, as well as Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. These have been sitting in boxes in storage for decades. They have never been scanned or seen before. We'll have those ready to release here within the next few days.
That's great. Bobby, how do you feel about that?
I'm very gratified to hear.
That's hitting close to home, isn't it? Huh?
No
When you think, I'm thinking about Bobby when that statement's made.
I'm very grateful to you, Mr. President.
And you'll let Bobby see some of this because, it's very personal stuff. But it's time.
I've asked him, and his response is, put it out. The world needs to know the truth.
and his uncle that's been out, and anything that hasn't been out, they can go to your offices and see, right?
Everything that we have within our possession, it's either online or it's physically at the National Archives and Records Agency. We also have hunters going out, Mr. President, and looking in the storage lockers at FBI and CIA and other agencies, specifically to find if there is anything else that has not been reported. We're actively going out and trying to search out the truth.
Okay. Yeah, we want to get it all out.
Yes.
100% good. Thank you very much. Good job, guys.
Mr. President, on behalf of America's manufacturers, I want to thank you for standing up to the Chinese Communist Party and fighting for our main streets, for our workers, and for those that make things in America. I'm out on a Made in America manufacturing tour, and as I go across the country, people are grateful to have a president who's not just fighting on the tariffs fronts, but to get inflation down, to create jobs. After Biden destroyed 110,000 manufacturing jobs in just his last year, you've already brought back thousands and thousands of manufacturing jobs. So the American worker is grateful. Main Street is grateful for you. And at the agency level, we're making sure that manufacturers have access to the capital they need, but we can't do that if we're not fighting fraud. So we've modified our loan applications to have citizenship verification, to make sure we have birth dates, common sense principles around lending that the Biden administration had waived. They waived $450 million of fees in 1 year. We're restoring that for the American taxpayer. And the American taxpayer, as tax day approaches, April 15th, they need to know that this cabinet, this administration, and thank you Elon Musk and Doge for fighting for the American taxpayer to make sure that their hard-earned dollars are well spent, that they have a return on investment for this country, and that we're fighting for them just as you are every single day. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, we are working at HHS to advance your agenda to make America healthy again. I'm working with Lee Zeldin to reassess the fluoride rules based upon the August release by the National Toxicity Program of new science that shows a direct inverse correlation between exposure to fluoride and IQ loss, particularly in children. Lee and I were in Utah this week, to announce that Utah became the first state in the country to ban supplemental fluoride. I'm working with Brooke and governors now in 24 states who are advancing MAHA legislation to get soda pops off of the food stamp program, off the SNAP program. We've launched Operation Stork Speed to get the bad chemicals out of baby formula. We're working with governors across the country to get good food into the school lunch programs and to get rid of food chemical dyes and other bad chemicals that are in our food. We've shown now that this directly affects academic performance, violence in the schools, and mental health, as well as physical health. We are working with governors across the country to get cell-to-cell or bell-to-bell legislation to restrict the use of cell phones in schools, which again dramatically impacts academic performance. Today we announced a dramatic reduction in animal testing at NIH and FDA. We're going to switch over to AI, which we've now found is much more precise in identifying the impacts of toxics in various products. We're working with Elon, who's done an incredible job to eliminate the redundancies and to streamline operations at all the health agencies and to recalibrate our trajectory to your agenda of making America healthy again. And finally, the CDC has done an amazing job at getting the measles outbreak under control. We have about 680 cases now in 22 states, compared to the same outbreak in Europe, which is 127,000 cases and 37 deaths. Our numbers in this country have now plateaued. And I want to thank CDC for that. And we're trying to refocus the press. We've had 3 measles deaths in this country over 20 years. And we're trying to refocus the press to get them to pay attention to the chronic disease epidemic as you've asked us to. We have now 38% of American youth are pre-diabetic. This was unknown 30 years ago. Every child that becomes diabetic, there should be a headline about them. We have 100 million adults who are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And we have, we have now, the autism rates have gone from now most recent numbers we think are going to be about 1 in 31, 1 in 12, so they're going up again from 1 in 10,000 when I was a kid. And we are going, at your direction, we are going to know by September. We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world. By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
So big. Think of that. So it was 1 in 10,000 children had autism, and now it's 1 in 31. Not 31,000, 31. That's a horrible statistic, isn't it? And there's got to be something artificial out there that's doing this. So you think you're going to have a pretty good idea, huh?
We will know by September.
There will be no bigger news conference than that. So that's it. If you can come up with that answer where you stop taking something, you stop eating something, or maybe it's a shot, but something's causing it. It can't be from 10,000 to. Can you imagine that, Marco? That's a big number. Thank you very much. You're doing great. Thank you, Bobby.
And just now, the Director of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., giving an update to his fellow cabinet members, along with Donald Trump there, saying that by September, he's going to have some answers on what he calls an autism crisis. He also said that there's going to be new science about a study about the impact of fluoride and children. We also heard from Elon Musk, notably not a member of the cabinet. He gave an update on his efforts with Doge. We also heard from Tulsi Gabbard talking about she's going to be tackling voting security, specifically some of the voting machines that she says has caused fraud. So we're going to keep an update on this cabinet meeting happening right now at the White House. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Welcome back. You're looking live inside the White House right now, where President Trump is holding a cabinet meeting. He is essentially going down the conference table there. Marco Rubio giving an update, and each cabinet member has been giving an update, touting their accomplishments over the past month or so and giving their goals for the rest of the year. But to the backdrop of all this are the markets. Let's take a look. Stocks give back much of their historic gains from the day before. Here's where the Dow stands now, down about 1,500 points, and it's been staying there for the past hour or so. And this all comes as President Trump's trade war continues to essentially confuse the economy. And we are following a stunning reversal by the U.S. Justice Department 2 weeks after Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel announced the arrest of an alleged MS-13 gang leader. The Justice Department has now asked a judge to drop those charges. Now, to refresh your memory, here's that March 27th announcement of the arrest.
He was one of the top members, top 3 in the entire country, head of the East Coast, one of the 3 leaders, and I will say very violent crimes. Anything you can associate with MS-13, he was the leader over it.
Okay, get this. The alleged gang leader's defense attorney is asking the judge now to keep the case, not dismiss it. Okay, we need somebody to make sense of all this for us. Let's get right to CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen. Thank goodness you're here, Jake. Can you explain this role reversal?
Right. So to start you all off,
the actual charges unveiled against this man was just possession of a 9mm handgun. There are pictures of that in the initial criminal complaint, and despite what Attorney General Bondi said there, in addition to Kash Patel and Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, who was also at that press conference, making all kinds of allegations that he was some kind of gang leader and a violent criminal who had potentially ordered murders, if not other violent crimes, that simply has not been produced yet. There has not been that kind of evidence that we typically see when these big announcements are made. And so as a result of that, yesterday, the Department of Justice moved to deport him, or moved to drop these charges so that they can potentially deport him. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a statement sent to reporters yesterday that because he's a violent criminal, they're trying to get him out of the country. However, because of the way that the Trump administration is doing these deportations kind of en masse with allegations of people being tied to gangs like Tren de Aragua, or in this case MS-13, the defense attorney wants this case to play out and for his client to remain detained. There was no initial argument by this man's attorney, to release him from detention. So he's been in jail this entire time, and because there's a fear, at least in a court filing last night by this man's attorney, that if he were released and these charges were dropped, he would be deported without any kind of hearing. It really sets up a complicated thing.
Jake Rosen, thank you so much for that update. All right, I want to take you back to this cabinet meeting that's happening at the White House right now. President Trump holding court there. Let's listen in.
Work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time. They've ripped us off beyond nobody. How people stood for it, sitting in my position, is not even believable. And we're talking about many presidents, not just a couple. But they did, and all we're doing is putting it back in shape. We're resetting the table. And I'm sure that we'll be able to get along very well. I have great respect for President Xi. He's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time. And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries. I look forward to it.
Mr. President, China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things. Yes, please.
Also on China, the Ukrainians say they have evidence that Chinese soldiers have been found fighting for the Russians in Ukraine. Can the U.S. verify this? And if so, what does the U.S. plan on doing to China to counteract that?
We'll look into it, but I think beyond that, we're really looking to get that war stopped. They're losing 2,500 and even more than that young people a week. They're Russian and they're Ukrainian. They're not American, but they're people. And we're seeing if we can get it stopped. And I think we're making progress. I appreciate the ballerina who was released. It was at the request of a very good friend of all of ours, actually. Dana White called me and he said it's the friend or the relationship of one of the fighters for UFC or one of the fighters. And Dana's an incredible guy, and we spoke to President Putin about it, and they made a deal. They released the young ballerina, and she is now out, and that was good, so we appreciate that. We hope that we're going to be able to make a deal relatively soon with Russia and Ukraine to stop the fighting. It's so senseless. It's such a horrible thing. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen, and we were given that card. And I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get it stopped. Got to get going. We got to get it. We have to move it faster. Likewise with the hostages, we're making progress. We, there's 59 hostages, but only 24 of them are living, and that's the way it's been presented to me by the mothers of some of the dead, mothers and fathers of some of the dead hostages, and they want the bodies of their baby, as they say, their baby, their young boys. They want them back as much as if they were alive. It's amazing, because when I met the hostages 2 weeks ago here, I couldn't believe what they had to go through, by the way. But when I met them, they said, yeah, there's 59, but 24 are living. And they actually consider, I guess if you're a parent, you do consider it this way, that the remainder who are dead, the 24 that are alive, the remainder that are dead, they want them back just as much as they would want them back if they were alive. It's really pretty amazing and pretty sad. So we're getting close to getting them back. We have a lot came back. A lot of people are very grateful. And some came back in pretty bad shape. Some came back, they're okay. I think they're going to be scarred mentally for a long time, because if you sit down and talk to them, as I have, what they went through is incredible. But we're making progress. We're dealing with Israel. We're dealing with Hamas. And it's a nasty grip.
Mr. President, so how close are you to the first country coming to actually make a deal with the United States over tariffs? Is it days, months?
Well, I think it's very close, but we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this in one day. I could just say, here's what we'll do. And I was saying to the people before, to Scott, mostly to Scott and Howard, and some of the other people that work with us on the negotiations. We have a lot of law firms that have paid me a lot of money in the form of legal fees. We're going to probably use those firms to, if we can, I think we can. I'll make a contribution to the country, but they're great firms. They're the best firms, the biggest, and really the most prestigious. And we may be using them to help you guys out, because you're going to need a lot of lawyers. And I'm not sure Pam's going to be happy if I say, can you send over about 200 lawyers that work on trade? She's working on criminal stuff, and I think that's going to be her focus more than anything else. So we'll find out if we can do that. But we have a lot of lawyers that you've been reading about, where they paid $100 million a firm on average. Now we have the final 4 or 5 are at $125 million. So I have a lot of legal fees I could give to you people, and we might as well use them. Hopefully I won't need that many legal fees or that much. I may. Who knows? After it ends, after we leave, maybe I'll need it. But if I do, it's not going to be very pleasant. So I think we're going to try to use these very prestigious firms to help us out with the trade, because we have a lot of countries. But we want to make deals that are proper for the United States, not just we can make deals easily. We want to make them proper.
Mr. President, if you aren't able to reach the deals that you want to see at the end of the 90 days, will you put those higher tariffs in place, or will you extend
Well, that's what
laws?
would happen. I mean, if we can't make the deal that we want to make, or we have to make, or that's good for both parties, it's got to be good for both parties. And then we go back to where we were.
Go back to the numbers that you announced last week.
I think so.
You wouldn't extend the pause?
Yeah. We'll have to see what happens at that time.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said yesterday you were considering some exceptions for companies. Can you talk about what you're considering? And then also on the reciprocal tariffs, that they'd be substantially lower. Is the same math formula going to be used, or is that tossed out?
I'm not considering now for any country or company, but it's possible that I would. But I'm not. We don't have that situation right now. People understand where we are, what we're going to do. But it could happen. It's called flexibility. You have to have certain flexibility.
What are you planning on using the money that you're gaining from revenue through the tariffs on?
Paying down national debt, reducing taxes, creating good budgets, helping Christie with the border and all of the other things. I built hundreds of miles of wall, as people now understand, 571 miles of border wall in the first administration. But we're going to beef it up, and we're going to add more. And, the numbers are incredible, really. The numbers of what's taken place. We had great numbers, but these numbers are topping my last administration. And Christie and Tom Homan have done an amazing job, but it's an expensive process. This weekend, where they used to have hundreds of thousands of people standing there pouring through the border in Tijuana, Mexico, this weekend they had nobody. You had a man sweeping this massive piece of concrete, which is, the area where they said massive. And I've looked at that during the Biden administration. You couldn't see a piece of that concrete. There were so many people on it. You couldn't, if you had helicopter shots, you couldn't see concrete. Now, this weekend, you had nobody there but a man with a broom sweeping it and cleaning it up. Pretty amazing. It's really an amazing job. But it will be used for that. It'll be used for a lot of things. It'll be used by the Department of Justice for doing a great job. Pam is doing a fantastic job. So it's going to be used for a lot of different things.
On the 10% tariff, is that a basement? Is that the
It's a baseline.
Can countries negotiate that to bring that
It depends on what they're adding. You know, some countries we have massive deficits with, or they have big surpluses with us, and others it's not that way. So it depends. That's why it's really they're all different. Every country is different. Some have certain advantages that others don't have, and certain things. We have some. China has a surplus of $1 trillion. I mean, the numbers are crazy, and others have basically no surpluses. You know, we have some that are pretty even, but they hurt us in other ways, and we just want to get that taken care of. So everyone is a little bit different.
So are you negotiating with the EU as one bloc or individual nations for the tariffs?
We're looking at it as one bloc. They've been very tough, but they were very smart. They were ready to announce retaliation, and then they heard about what we did with respect to China and others, but China, and they said, you know, we're going to hold back a little bit. They decided to hold back. I thought they were very smart. Look, the EU is very smart, but they really have taken advantage of the United States. They were formed for the purpose of taking advantage of the United States. And I don't blame them, and I don't blame China. I don't blame anybody. I blame the people that were sitting at that desk in that other beautiful Oval Office for allowing it to happen. Many presidents I blame. They should have never allowed it to happen. And I'm doing something that a lot of them wouldn't want to do. But I'm here, I do those things, and we're going to make this country great again. We were taken advantage of by almost everybody. I sat back in the last administration. I would actually read them. I don't have to read them now. I know them so well. I would read some of these documents that were signed, deals, and I said, who would do a deal like this? Who would do it? You've seen it, Elon. Yeah. I'd look at deals where it's so one-sided. Even we have a deal with Japan, and we get along great with Japan, and we had the Prime Minister here. He was fantastic. As you know, Abe was great. Shinzo was great. He was a good friend of mine, unfortunately no longer with us. But we defend them, but they don't have to defend us. I said, that doesn't sound too good. But we have a deal, a defense deal. We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to defend them. But if for any reason, in other words, we pay all the money. They don't pay anything. But if we're ever attacked, they don't have to do a thing to protect us. I said, oh, that sounds like a wonderful deal. So that's just one out of thousands. And I just wonder who did this. And it's people that either hate our country or didn't care, an expression that you use. I think it's really a lot of them didn't care. It's just hard to believe how bad they are. Now, that's a little bit of a defensive deal, but I'm talking about trade deals, the same thing. They're so bad, you would say, how come? And even when I'd renegotiate, like, I'd go to a country, they'd give me everything I asked for. I said, why didn't somebody ask for it, like, originally? They give me everything. I think when they were negotiating, they didn't care, or they didn't ask, or they were shy, or they were very stupid, or they hate our country. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
You were speaking about Japan. Can you clarify what your vision is for U.S. Steel? You referenced it yesterday.
Yeah.
There were some questions about what you actually want
Sure.
to see.
Look, U.S. Steel is going to do very well now because of tariffs. And I don't know why they even need a deal. But the only thing is U.S. Steel, if you go back 80 or 90 years, that was a behemoth in this. That was our biggest, most... if we were around, we would have been very proud of it. Today we have different types of companies that are big. Google, it's not the same as U.S. Steel. And I love Google, and I got to like the people that run it. They're very capable people. They didn't like me so much in the first administration, but they like me a lot now. I don't know what happened, but I like them. But, you know, I think they would be the first to admit, when I envisioned, you look at some of those steel factories from 90 years ago, it was a different kind of a country. but they were miles long. Today you see just empty hulks. Those hulks are going to be filled up very soon because of what I'm doing with tariffs. It was a different kind of a thing. But if I didn't do that in the first term, my first term, if I didn't put tariffs on, we would have, because China and others were dumping steel, billions of dollars of steel. Our steel companies were all closing. Every fact, we wouldn't have one steel plant open. And now we have a steel industry that's doing very well, but soon it's going to be thriving, really thriving. And those factories are going to be filled up, but more importantly, they're going to build brand new ones. Nucor and so many other companies call me, Nucor being a big steel company. They're building massive new steel plants, and it's great. And likewise, car companies. We have many, many car companies. 3 of them, I'm not looking to hurt Mexico, and I like Mexico. And by the way, I think the new president is a terrific person, a fantastic woman. We've had many conversations. She's a very elegant, just a fantastic person. And she's been very nice, very, very nice. But I'm not looking to hurt them. But we have 3 car plants that were under construction in Mexico. They stopped constructing, and now they're going to build in the United States because of tariffs. See, we should have never let this happen, because whoever it was that was president at the time, we lost 90,000 plants and factories since NAFTA. 90,000. It's not believable. How about that, Lori? You know, you're in that sort of world of factories and plants.
Manufacturing, construction jobs, bringing those workers back home.
That's right. We're going to bring them all back. But think of it, from that period of time, which isn't so long ago, we lost. I said the other day, if you had a map on a big wall like this, and if you had pins, 90,000, I don't know if you'd have enough. I don't think you'd have enough room on the map to put the pins. 90,000 factories that we've lost since NAFTA. And it's not even, and about 6 million jobs, but really, I think probably a lot more than that, but they say 6 million jobs. We're going to bring many of that back. I think we're going to bring more than all of it back. We're going to be better and stronger than ever before. But if a president, when they were leaving, said, look, you can leave, but if you're going to build a factory someplace else, and you think you're going to come and sell your steel or your car or any product that you make, your pharmaceuticals, which we're going to do, we're going to get them all back. But if you think you're going to just, all they had to do is say this, and they wouldn't have left. You know, I said it the other day. I said it with respect to, I made a speech a year ago, and I told them if I win, we're going to charge a big, big tariff at the border. And people were thinking about building in Mexico a car plant. And I said, we're going to have a big tariff. So if you want to build a car, you're going to have to pay 25% more than the cost of that car. You're going to have to pay 25% tariff at the border. They would have never left. They could have kept everybody. If a president said, if you leave this country, you leave Michigan, you leave Detroit, you leave anybody, any of our states, because to me they're all the same. I love them all. I love them all, and I probably won them all, but they say I won most of them, but I think I won them all, but that's okay. But all you had to say if you were the president is, if you leave and you think you're going to now fire all those workers, leave all that, everything behind, and you're going to build in another country and sell it any, and no, you're not going to. You're going to pay 50% or 100% tariff. They would have never left. And all you had to say, Marco, all you had to say very simply is, you don't have to write it down. All you have to do is say it verbally. If you leave, you're going to pay 100% tariff, therefore don't leave. They would have never left. But they left 90,000 plants. I mean, it's hard to believe that many. It's not, you can't envision it. So just getting back to your, because I'm the great weaver of all time. To weave, you have to be a genius. To go on tangents, anybody can do that. But we'll get back to your original U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel is a big name in this country. It's Babe Ruth is a big name. We have a lot of big names, but not too many. U.S. Steel is one of the great names in the history of our country. And normally I wouldn't mind so much. I wouldn't be thrilled with it. But to buy for a foreign country, and we love Japan, but for a foreign country to buy that cherished U.S. Steel brand, That's hard for me to do. I mean, somebody else may want it. The company Nippon that's involved with it is a big, powerful company who do a good job. But why can't they just build a plant themselves? I mean, why do they have to, take U.S. Steel? So as you know, I rejected the deal. Now they've come back in a different form. They're coming back as an investor. And I feel better about that, I guess. But, I know them very well. I know the thinking. It's the investor. They'll invest, and somebody else maybe is sitting in this chair, and they will no longer have an investment. They'll have the whole thing. That's the way it works. They're very smart. They're very, very smart people. We're dealing with very smart people throughout the world. Great geniuses, actually. Look what they've done to our country. And again, I don't blame China. I don't blame anybody. If I could have done it, if I were in that position, I'd have great respect. I have great respect for the people. They ripped off the United States, and all we had to do, have a president that knew what the hell was going on, and none of those countries would have left. Those companies, none of them would have left. So that's a little lesson in basic business. And it's really basic business. It's not complicated business. It's very basic business. And we'd have every one of those car plants going just the way they were 30 years ago. None of them would have left, but now they're coming back.
President Donald Trump there answering questions from reporters at a cabinet meeting. He went around the table. Each cabinet member gave an update on what they were proud of over the past month or so and their goals for the future. There he's answering questions about his negotiations over tariffs. But I want to get to some breaking news. Chanel Call standing by in our newsroom with some new information. Chanel, what can you tell us?
Hey, Liz, good to see you. So the breaking news this hour, 3 sources telling CBS News U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Bridget Brink is planning to resign. Brink has been the ambassador to Ukraine for 3 years now, and even though we're told she's not formally submitted her resignation just yet, we are told by our sources that she is making farewell calls to colleagues today. We've asked for official comment from the ambassador and from the State Department. So far, have not yet heard back. As for what prompted her resignation, one senior U.S. official tells CBS News it stems from an unusual mix of personal and policy concerns, including the recent USAID layoffs. And I should point out, Liz, this resignation, of course, comes at a key moment in U.S. and Ukraine relations. The Trump administration has tried to broker a ceasefire deal to end the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but so far the two sides have not been able to agree on how to end the war.
CBS News correspondent Chanel Call, thank you so much for that update. All right, a big day here on CBS News 24/7. We're following the markets. The Dow currently down about 1,200 points, but it's been wavering up and down in that same region. We're also following this cabinet meeting that's happening at the White House between Trump and his top cabinet members, including Elon Musk, who was not a member of cabinet. He was answering questions from reporters about his tariff negotiations, also giving an update on some different things that he's working on, including getting U.S. Steel back on track, as he calls. Is going to do very, very well because of these tariffs. We're going to keep an eye on all this for you right here on CBS News 24/7. Nancy Chen takes over next.